Hi, we're going to look at writing a KBL script for a typical business task. Suppose we want to identify our most valuable customers from their order history. So to do this, we need to look at two sources of information. That's customer details and also the order file itself. So I'm going to start by writing a new script. So here we go. So script new, I'm going to call it top 10. There we are. And instead of me typing it all out rather slowly, I'm going to paste in some script that I prepared earlier. There we are. And instead of running the script in its entirety, I'm going to run it in a stepwise mode, which means it executes it line by line. So we'll reset and we'll start stepping. I'll explain it as we go. The first thing to do is to read in our customer data. Now this is coming from an Excel file. It's quite a modest sized file. It could be hundreds of thousands of rows, but a few lines will suffice. So step, it's executed the import. So if I look in main, which is the main memory table, we'll find that we've got a customer file. Column 2 is the customer ID. Column 3 is customer name. We've got something called customer region, customer postcode, all the normal things that you'd find in a customer file. Now I'm going to save this in a secondary table called store. So I'll step through that. And I'm also going to save it in a user-defined table called all customers. So now if I look in main, we have our data. If I look in store, we have our data, and if I look in named, we have our data as well, and all customers. We'll move on to the orders. So we're going to read the next file, which is again is an Excel file. It's the orders file. So step, step, step. Now if I look in main, we've got the orders data. There we are. The customer ID is in column 3. There's a status in column 9, C for completed order, X for cancelled, and we have the order value in column 8. Now the order status had some X's in it, which meant that the order had been declined or cancelled. So I want to get rid of those. They're of no use to us. So I'm going to use something called the mark command. Now the mark sets up a filter in effect. I'm just going to show you by marking column 9, and I'm going to put space, and we've got something called IntelliSense, which actually prompts us for the next option in a command. So you don't have to remember all the commands. IntelliSense will help you out. So as it happens, I know this construction X. Okay, I'm going to keep on stepping. So we've marked all the X's, and now we're going to remove. We could have kept or removed, but we're going to remove. Now if I look in main, we should find that in column 9 there are no X's, it's all C's. That's lovely. Right, KBL reads Excel files as text, so when we're going to do a numeric operation like we will do next, then we just need to make sure that the column type is correct, and we're going to redefine column 8, which is the order value, as a real. So step, step, and then I'm going to roll up our data by customer ID. So instead of having I think it was 150 rows of individual customer order, we are going to get a unique list of customer IDs with the rolled up customer value. So if I look in main now, we're down to 50 rows. Column 3 has the customer ID, it'll be a unique customer ID, and column 8, which is now real because we redefined it, contains the rolled up customer value, customer order value. Okay, now we want to put the two sets of data together, customers and orders, so that we can actually put a name to those values. So we're going to merge. We're going to merge on the common key, which is the customer ID. which is in column 3 in main, which is orders, and is in column 2, which is in store, which is the customers. So I'm going to step on that now. And if I look in main now, we should have a very wide table with order information on the left and customer information on the right. Now notice the first column has got some nulls in. That's because our data is deliberately imperfect. So some of the orders and customers won't match, quite deliberately so, and we'll treat that in a minute. Right, so we'll store that information, and we're going to delete main. Now if I look in main, main is now empty. If I look in store, we've got that combined data of customers and orders. Now the reason I'm doing this is that it's rather a large, messy table now, and I'm only interested in certain elements. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to clone parts of what's in store into main, and we have something called the clone command here. So if I keep on stepping, I'm going to clone column 1, which will be customer ID, column 8 in column 2, which is going to be the order value, and so forth. So having cloned those columns, and I now look in main, I've got a much tidier table. So customer ID, order value, customer name, customer type, and email address. So we've pretty much undertaken what we said we're going to do. We're going to try and get those order values for each of the customers. First of all though, I'm going to clean up the nulls where there wasn't a match. So if I go step, 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 and I'm going to order the data in decreasing value of customer. So if I look now, we've gone through the sort routine and the cleanup routine. So if I look in main, here we have it. The order value is now in decreasing order. So Tyler Engineering is top with £684, Carol's Cakes next with 683. Okay, right. So that produces a nice little cleaned up data set, but it's not a very inspiring script, so we're going to make it a little bit more functional and a little bit more generic. So this time I'm going to stop the step mode progression, and I'm going to run the script in its entirety, and then we'll go back over and look to see what it's done. So I'll do reset, run. Now I've got the script to ask us what type of customer that we're interested in. If I type in all, we'll get all customers. That's SMEs and personal customers. If you remember, in main we had we had a customer type. So I'm going to type in SME. So it's now returning me just the SMEs. I've asked it to print the data for me on the screen. So we've now got 14 rows. These are just the SMEs. Again, it's in decreasing order of value. It's popped up a little box to say that the top 10 customers have been written to a file called top data SME. Right, now the SME came from the parameter that we entered, so it's a little bit generic now. If I typed in all, the name of the file that's created would have included all. And at the end I've asked it to just print me a little pie chart that represents the orders, so I can see the top orders here, or sorry, the top customers and their order values there. Nothing terribly sophisticated, but just a small graphical representation. Well, there we go. Now that script's finished. So from where we were to start with, which was just to process all of the data, we can now select the type of customer that we want to look at. And we use two constructions in there. We've used entering a parameter. So on this line here, you can see that we've got an input, a standard input command which asks for a parameter value called ctype, where the user is invited to enter all or a customer type, and then we test the customer type that's been entered. If it was all, we do no filtering at all. If the customer type isn't all, then we will filter for the type of customer that we entered. So what we have here is a typical workaday script that you would probably use in a busy office environment to produce the data that you need in a hurry. It's not flashy, it only shows you a fraction of what KBL can do and what the studio can do. If we were going to release this script for other people to use, we would tidy it up, we would put some more comments and documentation in, we would probably add things like this. We would say store temporary table. So we would add documentation as we go that would help other people test it. We can actually put some color on it as well, so that we can see the a bit more about the structure of my my script. As you can see, it's not very long, so it does quite a lot for a relatively small script. If I need help, then I've got help on my commands here. So, for example, mark, I can click on examples, I can find out the syntax and the semantics. I've also got the wizard to help me out as well. Here's the wizard, so if I wanted to find some information, for example, on good script writing, tips for writing good scripts, documenting your scripts, for example, I can look up all the documentation through the wizard. I've got access to examples and other videos, so I can type in the search box here. If I wanted to know about, say, if statements, I could type in if and it would come up with this kind of thing. Conditional logic, click here again. All the help is at hand and plenty of examples for you to look up and learn. Okay, so I hope that's given you a little bit of a going over of KBL and of the studio. It is available for download very shortly. Thank you.